The Russia GDP has had both increasing and decreasing value based on the economic shakeups in the world. For the last 5 years, the highest GDP was 2,297.1 billion in 2013, and the lowest is 1,368.4 billion in 2015. The GDP growth rate of Russia has been below 5 for the last 7 years, apart from 2012, when the GDP growth rate was 5.12. The GDP shows that the country has been stable because the deviation has not been full despite the economic challenges that have affected the country and the world as a whole. On the other hand, the GDP at purchasing power parity averaged at 22,000 for the last 5 years, with the highest being 25,000 in 2013 and the lowest was 24,000 in 2016. A high GDP at purchasing power parity is an indicator that more citizens are doing better regarding their ability to buy the products they require for their daily needs. The GDP per capita based on the purchasing power is calculated converting the gross domestic product to international dollars using the purchasing power rates, then dividing it by the total population of the nation. Different sectors in Russia have different income capacities. Therefore, the average used by the GDP per capita based on the purchasing power parity does not give the accurate measure of the real situation per individual in the society. The consumer price index inflation in Russia has remained relatively low. The worst year was 2015, when the inflation rate shot to 15.55%, which is the highest for the last 15 years. The rate has, however, decreased since that time to 3.69 in 2017. The decrease in the consumer price index inflation is associated with the diversification of production of the nation to meet the needs of the consumer at fair prices. The reduction in the consumer price index inflation is an indication of better livelihood for the citizens, since the goods and services remain affordable by the majority without significant changing. The unemployment rate in Russia has remained below 6% for the last 5 years. The highest unemployment rate was in 2015 at 5.57% and the lowest in 2014 at 5.14%. The initiative of the government to invest more in production sector and the creation of conducive environments has helped in reducing the unemployment rate. In Russia, the currency used is Russia ruble. One Russia ruble is exchanged at 0.02 and 0.01 against the US dollar and the euro, respectively. The rate of the exchange rate has been increasing, an indication that the economy of Russia is becoming more and more stable compared to the economic powerhouses like Europe and the United States. The exchange rate has the power to affect the economy of the country by influencing the inflation rate. When the exchange rate appreciates, the prices of the raw materials, imported consumer goods and capital goods reduces. thus increasing the purchasing power of the citizens. The appreciation, however, slows the growth of real GDP by making the exports expensive, therefore increasing the demand for the imports, and as a result, increases the unemployment rate. Russia is an active country in the world trade because of the abundance of natural gas, oil, and precious metal used as their significant export. The state is the second largest exporter of petroleum after Saudi Arabia. The import as a percentage of GDP of Russia has remained above 20% for the last 5 years. The rate has increased from 20.23% in 2012 to 20.69% in 2017. The percentage shows the nation of the GDP that arise from the imports. The imports reduce the GDP of the importing nation since money is used to acquire the goods and services from other countries. Increase in the import as a percentage of the GDP indicates the reduction in the income for the nation since money is used to purchase imports. The exports as a percentage of the GDP has remained above 25% for the last 5 years. The highest ratio of exports as a percentage of the GDP was 28.61% in 2015, and the lowest was 25.7% in 2016. The exports increases the GDP product of the exporting nation. The higher the percentage of the export ratio, the higher the GDP. The reason for the positive effect is because the exports earn the country income when their products are sold to the foreign nations. The country has more resources to export compared to the demand for the foreign products. Based on the import and export as a percentage of the GDP, the income ranged between 46.19% in 2013 to 49.18% in 2015. The two trade from an integral part of the GDP since they constitute close to half of the total GDP of Russia. The increase in the export of the nation has a positive influence on the GDP of the country, while the increase of imports negatively affects its GDP. The country has opportunity because of the vast land and natural resources that can be used adequately to generate more income to the nation. The bans and the strict regulation can be abandoned by the government to attract more investors to exploit the natural resources and in turn create job opportunities to reduce the rates of unemployment. Russia faces several economic challenges. The low and fluctuating prices of crude oil poses a real challenge to the economy by lowering the general income from the oil business. The second challenge is the inflation rate that has remained high, thus making life expensive for the citizens because of the high cost of foodstuffs and other basic needs. The high number of the old compared to the working classes increases the dependence ratio. The low returns from the oil products discourages investors, thus increasing the unemployment rate.